Hi everyone, I'm James, and I feel a little bit intimidated because of the quality of the talks that we've just had. So we're going to just manage expectations because we're coming down several layers just now. And I want to actually, it was really good that we can start off with this quote because everyone's talking about AI at the moment. And I mean, Terry Pratchett kind of foresaw what I was going to find several years ago, well, many years ago, when he wrote Hogfather, when he said real stupidity beats artificial intelligence every time. So my idea is that we could be making people more aware of things like Alzheimer's and dementia more generally, using stories. So we can use Terry Pratchett as an inspiration to show people things about Alzheimer's and about dementia more broadly, which would otherwise not necessarily come up unless they happen to know someone suffering with the disease. And especially I'm thinking this is a whole society kind of problem. So at the moment, or for many years, we've dealt with dementia as kind of, oh, granny is a bit strange or something like that, or this person can't remember very well. Okay. And we treat it as an isolated thing, but it isn't. And so I'd like to find ways of allowing children to understand what this is and allowing people who are going to end up caring for people to understand what this is. And for people who've just received a diagnosis to understand what is happening and what will go on to happen. So this is the very, 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 very first step in really a test to see whether this concept is even viable. So I did it really cheaply by using AI, so artificial intelligence. And then I just wanted to see if I ask it to make short stories about, inspired by Terry Pratchett, but about people who are discovering that they have something like Alzheimer's, what does it come up with? And then if I ask it also to create images to go along with those stories, what do we have? So I'm going to show you. Okay. So the first one is I just said, write a story inspired by Terry Pratchett, where involving Alzheimer's disease. So I'm going to read it to you. It's not very long. And these images are the generated ones. So in the bustling city of Ankh-Morpork, where chaos and order collided like runaway carriages, there lived a woman named Agnes Flinch. She was an ordinary woman with an extraordinary name, but her life was anything but ordinary. Agnes was a librarian, and she cherished the written word more than anything else in the world. She would spend her days surrounded by the comforting embrace of books, their stories like old friends keeping her company. But one day, Agnes began to notice that the stories seemed to slip through her fingers like water, leaving behind only vague ripples in her mind. At first, it was small things, misplacing her spectacles or forgetting the names of familiar characters. She dismissed it as mere absent-mindedness, but the ripples grew larger, and soon the sea of her thoughts became turbulent. Agnes confided in her friend, Mr. Groats, the elderly caretaker of the library. Mr. Groats, she said, her voice tinged with worry, I feel as though the stories are escaping me, like birds from a cage. I can't remember the endings, and sometimes the words on the page seem like gibberish. Mrs. Groats, a wise old woman who had seen her fair share of life's peculiarities, nodded with understanding. Ah, Miss Flinch, the mind is a labyrinth, and sometimes it takes a turn we didn't expect. But worry not, for I shall be your guide through this maze. Agnes found solace in Mrs. Groats' reassuring presence, but as the days passed, the labyrinth of her mind became more intricate. She would read a book, become engrossed in the tale, only to lose herself within the pages, unable to recall whether she had read it before or not. She began leaving notes for herself like little breadcrumbs in the maze, but they too would sometimes become lost in the corridors of her thoughts. The words on the pages seemed to dance and morph into new configurations, a kaleidoscope of letters that defied comprehension. One evening, as the setting sun painted the sky in hues of gold, Agnes sat by the window, gazing at the vast expanse beyond. "Mrs. Groats," she said softly, "I fear I'm losing myself, like a ship adrift in a storm." Mrs. Groats sat beside her, her kind eyes filled with empathy. "Miss Flinch, the stars above may seem distant, but they shine just as brightly, and so do the stories within you. Alzheimer's may cloud your path, but you are still the keeper of tales, and you've touched the lives of many with your words and kindness." Agnes smiled, a wistful glimmer in her eyes. "You always know what to say, Mrs. Groats. I'm grateful for the memories we've shared." Okay. As the city of Ankh-Morpork bustled on, Agnes found comfort in the present moment, savoring stories as they unfolded before her, even if they slipped away later. She treasured the laughter of friends, the warmth of the sun of her face, and the feeling of a well-worn book in her hands, no matter how fleeting those sensations might become. In Ankh-Morpork, where time and memory intertwined like a dance of shadows and light, Agnes Flinch taught those around her a lesson in cherishing the present. And though Alzheimer's disease may have cast a shroud over the labyrinth of her mind, the essence of who she was, the stories she had lived, and the love she had shared remained etched in the hearts of those she touched forever, bound in the pages of their lives. And that's the first one. The second one, I asked specifically about PCA, which is the kind of Alzheimer's disease that Terry Pratchett suffered from. And let's see what you notice. In the enchanting village of Enigmoria, where the laws of logic were as fluid as the rivers that wound through the meadows, there lived a woman named Mildred Ponderwell. She was known for her astute observations and quick wit, but lately a peculiar enchantment had woven its way into her life. Mildred would wake up each morning with the sun, but as the day unfurled its tapestry, she felt like an explorer in her own mind. The landscape of her thoughts was ever shifting like sand dunes in a desert breeze. Words once familiar became elusive butterflies, flitting beyond her grasp, leaving behind only a trail of colorful dust. She would stand by her garden, marveling at the flowers that blossomed like constellations in the dark soil, but sometimes their names would escape her, and she'd find herself talking to the blossoms as if they held the key to her enigmatic thoughts. Her friend, Mr. Snodgrass, noticed these changes and offered a listening ear and a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "Mildred, my dear, it's as if your mind is a grand library and the books are scattered like leaves in the autumn breeze. But fret not, for we shall explore this labyrinth together." Mildred smiled, grateful for Mr. Snodgrass's comforting presence, but she couldn't shake the feeling of disorientation. She felt like a puzzle with missing pieces, her mind a riddle she couldn't solve. One afternoon, they ventured into the heart of Enigmoria to seek the wisdom of Miss Hildegard, the village's venerable scholar. Her cottage was a treasure trove of knowledge, with shelves lined with books on every subject imaginable. Miss Hildegard greeted them with a warm smile, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. "Ah, Mildred, my dear, it seems the constellations of your mind are dancing to their own celestial rhythm." Mildred nodded, a glimmer of recognition in her eyes. "Indeed, Miss Hildegard, it's like the stars in the sky, but they keep rearranging themselves and I can't make sense of the patterns." Miss Hildegard guided Mildred to a cozy corner of her study, where they sat amid stacks of books and forgotten tomes. "Fear not, for what you're experiencing is known as posterior cortical atrophy, an enchantment where the mind's telescope shifts its focus." she handed Mildred a parchment filled with sketches and diagrams explaining the mysterious journey of her mind. Your brain's tapestry may have threads that tangle and knots that come undone, but it also weaves new patterns, sparking novel connections and novel ways of seeing the world. Mildred gazed at the parchment, a sense of wonder enveloping her. So my mind isn't lost, just exploring new paths. Miss Hildegard nodded, her eyes gleaming with wisdom. Indeed, dear Mildred, think of it as a grand adventure where you'll uncover hidden treasures even in the midst of uncertainties. And so Mildred accepted her enchantment, her mind a cosmos of unexplored galaxies. Some days the stars aligned and clarity would grace her thoughts like a gentle breeze. Other days she'd wander through the nebulous corridors of her mind, content in the mysteries she'd uncovered. In the village of Enigmoria, where the whimsical was ordinary and the ordinary was whimsical, Mildred Ponderwell taught her friends the art of embracing the unknown. For though posterior cortical atrophy may have tangled the threads of her mind, accepting it had also gifted her with a kaleidoscope of expectations, illuminating the world in a tapestry of colors and constellations, where every moment could hold a spark of enchantment. So those are my two stories. And the reason why this is the very, 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 very first step is because you may have noticed certain things about the stories. And so if we were going to expand this out into a bigger project, those things would also become magnified. So one of the things that you may or may not have noticed is that the stories are quite formulaic and quite boring in the sense that someone just discovers something's happening and someone says it's this, and then that's the end. So there's no real like journey that the character has to go through. And in both cases, the small amount of journey that there is the same, basically. The second thing is that the AI systems that that I used here, they have a feature built into them which prevents them from producing negative sentiments. Like they try to spin everything into a positive. And so I actually had to edit the second one because it made it sound as if like it was really inappropriate. It made it sound as if, oh, a PCA is just a wonderful thing to have. And like, although we probably have to accept, like that's why I changed it like this to like this. So the character finds solace in the fact that she is accepted that this is happening and she understands what's happening, even though part of that understanding entails confusion. I didn't want it to say, let's all go out and get PCA, something like that. The third thing is that the images are really tricky to make because you might notice every one is of a really different style. And also the characters inside, it's really hard to make a character which is then continued through several images. Like I can say, produce a female character with a hat and she's got to have this kind of hair and make it in this style. And then I could do it 100 times and get different pictures of different people. And so if you want to have a short story even, or any kind of narrative with characters that are followed throughout the text, you've got a problem because you'd end up with completely different people. And then there are other problems that we know about in terms of artificial intelligence. Let me just find the right slide. I have to go back a few. So the more observant of you will notice So she has 6 fingers. Yeah. She has another finger with a ring on it, even though it's kind of stuck to the other one. And I didn't actually notice that until I'd already made all the slides and I was just kind of deciding what I would say. And then I thought, oh, that's a really nice picture, actually. And oh, but I kept it anyway. So that's the reason that going forward, we wouldn't rely entirely on AI for this. But I feel like there's a nugget of something here as a concept, which we need to develop. And what I'm really hoping is that we'll be able to draw in the estate, the Terry Pratchett estate, which has a really good relationship with us so far. And we'll be able to bring in practitioners. So in other words, people who actually write short stories for a living, and actual artists who can help us to translate the science, which we've already heard about, and there's a lot more. We can translate it for the rest of us. So people like me who don't know much about this at all, we can make this understandable. So that's me. Thank you. Are there questions? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Helena and I'm married to Kevin, who's going up next to speak. And Kevin was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. And I found the whole concept awesome. Actually, the colours were beautiful, they were soft and gentle, and they seemed to be full of empathy, even visually it was. But I didn't find there was any realism in it. There was no reality as to what happens behind my front door 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, in the middle of the night, his REM sleep behavior disorder, etc., etc., etc. And while we don't want to frighten people away from these diagnoses, we need to be realistic about the diagnosis so that the people can see and can and do all sorts of things. But I found the whole concept awesome, actually. The colours are magnificent.
Thank you very much. That's exactly right. I that's why I was not very happy with the stories. Like, they're so superficial that you're left with, okay, and then what? Kind of sensation. Thank you. Hello.
I am the Kevin.
You're the Kevin.
One thing I want to congratulate you on is the images. There's no having anyone like the images. You show a head with the leaves blowing away. Show your head to be like a tree after the climb. That's when I see those, I look in the mirror and say, "This is not still all there." You know? And I agree with Lena on the imagery. And whatever about the content, the imagery where she was looking at the flowers and the flowers are going back meaning and back feelings.
Okay.
And we talked about a bit about that in a minute. That is so important. But once you keep using the real faces, even the cartoon faces, please leave them have a head.
Okay, that's brilliant.
Especially those of us who have dementia. Because, you know, what's inside might be working great, but what's outside still looks fairly good. Thank you.
That's brilliant feedback. Thank you very much. I was wondering, like, do the images function in the way that I wanted them to? So the way, what I had in mind was that we need to build empathy, because people are just terrified of this kind of thing. And when we're terrified of a subject, we generally just don't want to deal with it at all. And one way to build empathy and get over that stigma is to show actual people, and not people who visually look any different from anybody else, but they're just people living their lives. So I'm glad that you approve. Thank you. Any other questions? Brilliant. Well, I'm relieved. So we're going to be moving forward. So this is one of the things that we're doing in the Pratchett Project. We've applied for some money to try and make this actually a reality and not just my kind of tinkering. So watch this space. We're really hopeful that we'll be able to achieve something. Okay. Thank you very much.